Hello everyone and welcome back to Satisfactory. In today's episode we'll be looking at trains. Now we'll be looking at how to build trains, how they work in general, how to set them up, and then as a second part to this video, which is going to be very important for a lot of people, is how to troubleshoot a train not working. And I'm sure a few of you watching this video are going to literally have to skip forward to that part. But yeah, I would suggest just looking through the whole video because there might be something that I do at the start that gives you a bit of a hint on what your problem is. So right here you can see we've got two train setups. Now this isn't the only train setups. I'm only going to use these two as they will help me showcase exactly how trains work and how to troubleshoot them. Now the two types of train setups that I've got here is a continuous loop. So this one is, as you can see, it looks like a racetrack. It goes from this station to this station and this station non-stop in a loop. And I've got one locomotive with one cart on it. Now, as you can see, the train is doing it by itself. Now, that is the automation part of the train setup. Now, if we just hover over to this side here, you'll see that that train is set up a bit differently. I really like that setup in most cases, but yeah, there is use cases for both scenarios. In this setup, we've got the two different locomotives with just the one cart just for show. Okay, so how do you build a train and how do you set it up? Now, first off, you have to start with the train station itself. Now, when building a train station, you'll notice that there is an arrow, and that arrow is very important because that is the direction of what it will run at. Now, if you look at this, you can see that there's a circle part at the front. That is the front of it. Okay, now let's just go back to this. You can see that my train is running in this configuration. It's going, that's the front, so it's entering, going, and it's going in that direction. So that is one tip when you're building trains, you can use that. Now, the second part to that is you've got your locomotives and you've got your freight cars, and then you get extra pieces like you've got your freight platform, and then you also get the most important part and the most frustrating part, the railway. Okay, we'll get to the railway in a bit. Okay, so what you do when you're building a train, the first tip I'll actually give you is start off with your train station. Do not start off with the track. Build your two train stations, no matter how far it is, or if you're building a train, or if you're building it over a long distance, before you reach the next train station area. Don't build the track all the way there. First build the train station area and then connect the track. So we'll take this one for example. I've got my train station and then I've got my freight platform that I've built. You then take the track and you connect it. It's basically the same as you would use any of the other functions within Satisfactory. But there is a few little things you need to take into consideration. You need power for your freight platform. And you'll notice that I'm hovering with my hover pack, but I'm way out of range of that power source there. It's because the power rail itself is a power source. It carries power so that the train can go. Okay, so you take your train station, you put your train station down, you take your freight platform, you build your freight platform, it will snap on. You'll see that I can snap my freight platform on and I give it power. Now you'll notice when you build it, it automatically gets a name, and I've left some of these in just for some info. So you'll see this one is Breeder C, and that one is, once we get into view, we've got station 10, but we've got some other ones in the vicinity. Borgstenda. If you look at the top, you'll see train station Borgstenda, Friesstad, and yeah, then those other names actually are real life stations where the game was developed by the developers in their country. There's actual train stations with those names. But yeah, I digress. Let's get back to building this. So now, first off, you put down your building, your train station, then you put down your platform itself. Now, an important thing to notice is that you need to have enough platforms for your train to dock and stop. So if you've got a train and a cart and I put another cart in, I need to have another freight platform for that train to stop. Otherwise, it will not stop at all and the whole system will break. And that is a common mistake that you make, that you think you can just put down one or two. You need to match your stations with the size of your train itself. Now, once you've built the train, we'll start playing with this one. You'll see that I've connected power, and when you notice that I've connected power to that train station there, but not to this one, because the rail carries power. Okay, now we go to the train station itself. You'll notice that the train actually uses electricity to run. So the train, will get into the train in a bit when it comes around, and I'll show you that, but it has a power consumption. Now, once you've built the train station, you need to build your train. So you do that by selecting your train, and then you'll see that it goes and you can build it on the actual platform, the train rail itself. Same with once you've built your train itself, you build the freight car. Now I am going to quickly take away this one. Oh no, I need to stop it. No, stop it. Okay. I'm going to turn off autopilot and I am going to stop this train, or it's going to stop eventually on its own. Okay, the runaway locomotive has been caught and we can continue. So the second tip is actually, when you're building your train, build it outside of the station. And this is just to help with setting up the whole system itself. Now I'm going to take this, and like I said, we're going to do our electric locomotive. Now you can see it's directional. So that is the front, that's heading that way, and that would be heading that way. Just look at the engines. The engines are in the back. Now what I'm going to do is we'll just add another cart here, a freight cart. Okay, so that's it. It's not going to do anything until we tell it what to do. Now let's get into it. Now if you look at it, it's got the brakes on and it works exactly like when you run around with it. W, S, A and D. Well, W and S, you can't really A and D with it. There's no way to turn. But you'll notice that the power consumption at the bottom, the kilowatts goes up and the speed goes up, and then as soon as I leave it, it stops, and I can just keep on doing this, and it will max out on megawatts, and then it will start dropping as the power needs drop. And I can now manually drive this train up and down, but that's not exactly how we want to use this train. So what I'm going to do is, let's stop this train. From within that train itself, if you press V, you bring up this edit train route. You can actually give the train a name in this one, so we'll do this as train A. And then you see that we've got timetable, autopilot, and all this information. What we'll now do is you go and hit this plus button, and it adds an entry for you. Now, I know that I've got two stations, so I'm going to do it twice. Now, we know that if I look at this, this is train station 10, and we've got the other one on that side, which is Breda C. So let's go back to V. It's got Breda C, but the next stop is actually train station 10. So you click on this, take the available stations, set it to 10. Okay, now you need to close the window for stuff to take effect. I can close the window, nothing happens. The reason for that, I still need to enable autopilot. And there we go. Now you can see I've got my speed, the power consumption, all of that going. Now, you don't need to be in the train itself to actually do this. On the train station, you have a configure option. So if I press this, go to the timetable, you'll notice that all the locomotives on this line will be on here. Now, we're not going to do one of those complicated ones. We're just going to do this, but you'll see that that same timetable, the same edit route pops up when I enter the freight platform. Okay, let's move on to something, the next one. So this is the second option that you've got. So instead of a continuous loop, we've got a single train that runs from station to station, and that's it. Now, configuration wise, it is not much different. Actually, there is no difference whatsoever. If I click on this, you'll see that I've got my two stations, Bora C and Borstenda, and autopilot is on. So that is it. The train is just doing that. The only difference is that I've got an extra locomotive. And you'll notice that this locomotive is pointing to the front and this locomotive is pointing to that front. So it is running as a dual setup. Now, one thing to notice in the game is that if you take an incline like that, with my train running on that line in the back there, as soon as you hit an incline, you lose momentum and you lose speed. To overcome that, just add an extra locomotive. Now, I kind of really like this setup. It looks neat, it looks clean, it looks neat, and the second part, as you can see, there goes my actual train running on my factory, same setup, and it's going at quite a speed. Now, I like this because of the fact that it takes up less speed at the end, and you'll notice that here in the back, this kind of makes a loop, but building that loop takes up so much space. You have to build a huge area just to do this, where this is a lot more compact and the train will stop at both ends. Okay, so what is the purpose of a train station? Well, it is pretty simple, moving lots and lots and lots of items. So when you build a freight platform, you will notice that it's got two inputs and two outputs. And that is to take on and dump a lot of materials over a large distance. So you get other transport materials, transport methods, but this is by far the most convenient when it comes to transporting a lot of materials over a large distance. I'm transporting this, I think, about 2 kilometers in that direction with that main train of mine, and doing a conveyor belt would work, but it would take forever to build the conveyor belt and do it all right. I've now just built a small conveyor belt from there to here, and then I run it all the way back to my factory, and then I can always just, instead of having another conveyor belt to travel to do something else, I can just add more freight platforms and I can do multiple resources. So it helps quite a bit. Now, how does the freight platform work? What I've got here is a simple setup. I've got a storage container loading stuff in, so we'll use just something very small. You'll see I'm now setting that in and it's going into this freight platform. It's loading in. The train will come back and it will load whatever is on this side, and it will go and unload it on that side. Now, this is how you configure this while we wait for the train. You will see that you've got two buttons here at the bottom, unload and load. This means the train, for it to load at this platform, it needs to be on this setting here. You will now see it's going to come, take all the resources all at once. There's no waiting for a conveyor belt to transfer it over. It just picks up the whole container, dumps it on the train, and there we go. So if I filled that whole thing with my whole inventory, I could transfer my whole inventory over to this freight platform in one go, because there is no unloading, or there's no waiting for a conveyor belt to unload it. So I could transfer a lot of materials very quickly. Now we go unload the whole train in one go. So it's got this whole animation. It takes a few seconds to do, and it will do each platform independently. So you don't have to wait for, if you've got multiple of these, and it will also unload partial, fully. It will literally wait and unload everything. And like I say, there we've got everything unloaded, going and done. So that is a very quick way. I'd literally just transferred a few things, but I could empty my whole inventory into this, and it would finish it. So on that, like I said, remember to double check that if your chain isn't unloading and loading correctly, it is this at the bottom. It is a bit of it's a bit backwards for me, and I struggled with this in the beginning to figure out exactly why or how, because I looked at it in a different way. Unload means unload from the station and load onto the train, and this one means load onto the station, unload from the train. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so now you've built your whole train setup, and you get a train that just doesn't want to move. It is just standing still, nothing's happening. So let's start with troubleshooting. Okay, so most of the time you will see a good indication. There is some indication that what is wrong, and in this instance it will actually tell you no power. So what I've just done here, and this is actually pretty easy to see if you've got the jetpack, but you don't have the jetpack early game, so I don't have any power for this. So I just broke this power line, and now I can go connect it. That's it. So now let's see if I can get this train started. So that is the one thing. If I get in here, it's changed from no power to invalid next stop. Now let's go and try and figure out what that is. Now if you go into the train or the train station, you'll notice that it's got the next stop, but what has happened is there is no name. So I built this train, and then I built the stop without adding it. So now, or I removed the stop and rebuilt it, and that's exactly what I did. So what I did is that station over there, I wasn't happy, so I quickly took it down and rebuilt it, and now I've got a train that doesn't want to work, because even though the train station name might be the same, it might still be whatever the station was before, or you rename it, the train loses that information. So now let's go, let's select station 10, go out, and now it's changed to unable to reach the next stop. Now this is one that isn't really very clear, and they said the developer said they're gonna look at changing quite a few things on trains. I'm sure it's going to be something in update 5 or maybe a bit later as well, but this is something I really hope that they look at, because this is one of the frustrating things when you start and you can't figure out, and you end up watching a video like this to figure out what's wrong. So right in the beginning, remember I said when you build your train station, make sure you've got the correct orientation. So at this moment, this orientation is wrong, and if we go to the top here, you'll notice, like I said, it's got the little bow facing forward is now facing the wrong way. So let's quickly take it down, and now I'm just going to build it again. Okay, now I have to, just to show you exactly what I meant, is we took down that station. It is still station 10, or it should still be station 10, but it's not going to work. So it's still saying invalid next stop. So if I go and configure it, see it's gone again. I can select station 10, and there it goes, all done and dusted. That's actually pretty nice. Now it's going to run no problem. So like I said, it's the messages does give you a bit of hints of what is wrong. Some of them are pretty clear, no power, or in it. So yeah, it helps a bit, but there is other issues that can arise. Okay, so another issue that you might run into is building a train and not looking at the orientation of the train. So if I look at this, you'll notice that the train is standing still, unable to reach next stop. Now, like I said before, that could be the timetable being wrong, but in this instance, the timetable isn't wrong. The problem is actually the locomotive itself. I've got this specific one built in the wrong way. So the orientation of this exact one is wrong. So let's fix that quickly. So now I've taken that away. Let's put it on. Like I said, look at the engine is at the back. This is the front. So we'll do it like that. And there we go. Immediately it runs. Now, sometimes you're going to be very, very unlucky and the train will do some really weird interactions. Now, how do you fix that? Sometimes everything you've tried doesn't work. So, first off, the standard old thing, disconnect and reconnect it. Turn it on and off. So you can remove the power via a switch or removing the power directly to the train station itself, and then adding it back again and seeing if it will fix the issue. If that doesn't work, go into the train itself, turn off autopilot, and then just drive the train a small little bit out from where it is, stop it again, turn autopilot on again. You might need to first delete your timetable, re-add the timetable, and see if that works. And sometimes it has you physically have to just remove the whole train from the system and re-add it. Another thing I would do is, if you're building, and we'll get to this now, make sure that you can actually drive your train on the train track itself. A lot of times you might just have misplaced it, and it happens quite often. I'll show you. If I connected this and I connected it, let's say I start here, it will sometimes look like it's connected within the other track, and it literally doesn't connect, but you then end up look like here. I can actually now place another piece on here, creating a ghost track, and that causes issues. Now, something else to take into consideration, you'll notice that I've got a pretty sharp bend here. Now, I'm just going to remove this quickly, and when you notice I'm removing it, it's because I've got a few pieces, and I'll show you exactly why right now. Okay, so I've got my station, I want to do a loop, but now I select my railway and I want to connect it, and sorry, I can't. The rail track is too sharp of a turn. Now you're gonna end up, you might get lucky sometimes, but you can do this really sharp by taking away and building it in small little sections. So this is still too sharp, but yeah, no, this is a bit too sharp for this train. But it's going to go, at some point I'll be able to turn it. So build it into small little sections. That helps quite a bit with making these as sharp as possible. And yeah, that's it. Don't try to, when you're doing a turn, you're going to end up with a lot of frustration. Like I said, look at this. I could make this turn. It looks like it's possible, and it is, but not in one go. So all I had to do is just build it into way smaller sections for it to fit in. And I think I took off quite a bit of the turning circle radius as well. I could probably get it tighter and make it a lot better. But yeah, something else you'll notice is that it is not straight, and that is because when you're building it's very hard for it to keep straight, especially when you start connecting multiple pieces one after the other. It goes straight. So, it goes a bit wonky, and you end up with these weird. Take this one for instance. It literally just did not want to go straight, even though I tried. And when you're building long sections, it tends to do this. If you don't want to do that, you literally have to go and build small little sections at a time to get a very nice straight line. So if you're having an issue of it just curving too much, not looking neat, just build it in small sections, and that will eliminate that issue. So I could build this, but there you can see it's immediately, look at how much that is turning. And every time I add on to it, look at this. As soon as the smallest little offset, and it starts turning. So if you want to have it nice and straight, build in small sections. It removes a lot of the frustration. You can get it straight, but if you're doing long sections like this, you end up with a random curve sometimes occurring in your line naturally. Okay, but I think that's it, guys. I think I covered most of the smaller issues. I'm not going to go into the more advanced train building, since they are going to be, Coffee Stain is looking at redoing a lot of the trains, because currently there's no collision, and that is an issue. So while they re-looking at trains and re-looking at that, I'm not going to look at the more complex build systems with what you can do with that. This is just to help you if you've got any issues with the simple standard versions. But yeah, thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, hit that like button. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe. Until next time, this has been Zombie Vega. Bye.